Officer Riley was the kind of cop everyone admired. She knew all the rules in the police handbook by heart and always followed them to the letter. Other officers looked up to her, and even the chief knew he could count on Riley to do things the right way. Riley truly believed in helping people, and that's why she became a police officer in the first place. She worked hard, always showed up on time, and never complained. Riley was known for her calm demeanor and her ability to handle tough situations with grace. Some joked she was a robot because she was so level-headed, but everyone knew she had a good heart. Little did anyone know, including Riley herself, that a single emergency call would test everything she believed in and turn her world upside down. The call came crackling over the radio, cutting through the usual police chatter. Fire at Maplewood Apartments, Unit 3B. Reports of someone trapped inside. Riley's heart jumped into her throat. Maplewood was just a few blocks away, she could be there in minutes. She flipped on her lights and siren, weaving through traffic as quickly and safely as she could. The dispatcher's voice was urgent, heavy smoke reported. Fire department en route, ETA 5 minutes. 5 minutes felt like forever. Riley gripped the steering wheel, her mind racing. Someone was trapped. She had to get there. She pushed the pedal to the metal, the siren wailing, praying she wouldn't be too late. This call felt different, heavier. When Riley arrived, thick black smoke billowed from the windows of Unit 3B. People were screaming, pointing at the building. According to protocol, she was supposed to secure the perimeter, keep the crowd back, and wait for the fire department. That's what she had always done. That's what she was trained to do. The fire department's arrival was choreographed, first, assessing the scene, hooking up hoses to the hydrant, and then, geared up in protective equipment, entering the building as a team. Each step was crucial for their safety and the safety of others. But looking at the smoke and hearing the desperate cries, Riley knew that protocol was too slow. Every second counted. Someone was dying in there. Her gut screamed at her to do something, anything. Waiting felt like a betrayal. Officer, stand back. Fire department is on its way, a fellow officer yelled, trying to pull her towards the crowd. But Riley couldn't. She looked at the apartment, then back at the officer. I can't wait, she said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. Without another word, she pulled her jacket over her face, trying to create a makeshift mask. The officer grabbed her arm. Riley, that's a direct order. Stand down. But Riley shook him off, her eyes filled with determination. I'm going in, she shouted over the noise, and before anyone could stop her, she charged towards the burning building, disappearing into the thick smoke. It was a decision that would change everything. Inside, the smoke was even worse. Riley coughed, her eyes stinging. She dropped to the floor, crawling beneath the thickest of the smoke, feeling her way along the wall. The heat was intense. She could hear the crackling of the fire and the distant sound of sirens. Hello. Is anyone there? She yelled, her voice hoarse. She crawled through the living room, now engulfed in flames, and into a hallway. She saw a number on a door, 3B. Kicking it open, she found a woman lying on the floor, unconscious. It was Sarah. Riley quickly assessed the situation. She was alive, but barely breathing. Riley knew she had to get her out, and fast. She heaved Sarah over her shoulder in a fireman's carry, and retraced her steps, fighting against the heat and smoke. As Riley stumbled out of the building, coughing and gasping for air, the fire department arrived. They rushed to take Sarah from her, placing her on a stretcher and administering oxygen. Riley collapsed onto the ground, her lungs burning, her face blackened with soot. She watched as the paramedics worked on Sarah, relief washing over her. She had done it. She had saved her. The crowd erupted in cheers, chanting, Riley. Riley. News cameras flashed, capturing the moment. She was a hero. The local news interviewed her, praising her bravery and quick thinking. The story spread like wildfire. Officer Riley saves woman from burning building, the headline screamed. For a moment, Riley felt like she was on top of the world. She had made a difference. She had saved a life. The next day at the station, Riley was met with a mix of congratulations and uneasy glances. Some officers patted her on the back, calling her a legend. Others avoided eye contact, whispering amongst themselves. The chief called her into his office. "Riley," he said, his voice serious, "what you did was incredible. You saved a life, and we're all grateful for that. But, you disobeyed a direct order. We have to follow procedure. An internal investigation has been launched." Riley's heart sank. The celebration was over. The reality of her actions was setting in. She had broken the rules, and now she would have to face the consequences. The weight of what she had done suddenly felt much heavier than the weight of Sarah on her shoulders. The internal investigation was swift and thorough. Riley was interviewed repeatedly, her actions dissected and analyzed. Every detail was scrutinized, from the moment she received the call to the moment she emerged from the building with Sarah. She understood the need for the investigation, but it felt like a betrayal. She had risked her life to save another, and now she was being treated like a criminal. The charge was clear: disobeying a direct order from a superior officer. The potential consequences ranged from a written reprimand to suspension without pay, or even termination. For Riley, a dedicated officer who had always followed the rules, the thought of losing her job was devastating. But the thought of not having saved Sarah was even worse. During one of the interviews, Riley was asked why she disobeyed the direct order. She looked the investigators in the eye and said, "Because someone's life was on the line. Waiting would have been a death sentence. I couldn't just stand there and watch someone die." She explained that she understood the importance of protocol, but in that specific situation, following the rules would have meant sacrificing a human life. "My duty is to protect and serve," Riley continued, her voice filled with conviction. "And in that moment, protecting meant putting myself in harm's way to save Sarah. I would do it again in a heartbeat." She knew her words might not change anything, but she needed them to understand her reasoning. She had acted not out of recklessness, but out of a deep-seated sense of responsibility. The police department, however, saw things differently. Chief Miller held a press conference, emphasizing the importance of following protocol. "Our procedures are in place for a reason," he stated, his voice stern. "They are designed to protect not only the public but also our officers. When officers deviate from those procedures, it puts everyone at risk." He explained that Riley's actions, while heroic, could have had disastrous consequences. What if she had been seriously injured or killed? Who would have rescued Sarah then? He emphasized that following protocol ensured a coordinated and safe response, even if it seemed slower. The department's stance was clear: rules were rules, and they had to be followed, no matter the circumstances. Safety first, always. Sarah, now recovered, was horrified by the department's stance. She couldn't believe they were punishing Riley for saving her life. She decided to speak out. "Officer Riley is a hero," Sarah declared in her own press conference. "If she hadn't acted when she did, I wouldn't be here today. The fire department would have been too late." Sarah described waking up in the hospital, confused and scared, only to learn that a police officer had risked everything to save her. "She didn't hesitate," Sarah said, her voice trembling with emotion. "She didn't think about the rules. She just acted. That's what a true hero does." Sarah's words added fuel to the fire, igniting a fierce debate in the community. The community was divided. Some wholeheartedly supported Riley, praising her bravery and demanding the department drop all charges. They organized rallies and online petitions, chanting, "Justice for Riley." Others, however, sided with the police department, arguing that Riley's actions set a dangerous precedent. They worried that other officers might start ignoring protocol, leading to chaos and potential tragedies. They believed that rules were in place for a reason and that even in extraordinary circumstances, they should be followed. Letters to the editor flooded the local newspaper, expressing both sides of the argument. The debate raged on, tearing the community apart. It was no longer just about Riley, it was about the very nature of law enforcement and the balance between rules and human compassion. Back at the station, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Riley felt like an outsider. Some of her colleagues, those who had initially congratulated her, now avoided her gaze. Others whispered behind her back, their words like tiny daggers. She ate lunch alone, scrolling through the news articles about her case, reading the comments, both positive and negative. She started to doubt herself. Had she done the right thing? Had she been reckless? Was she really a hero, or just a rule-breaker? The isolation was crushing. The job she once loved now felt like a constant reminder of her mistake. Even the simple act of putting on her uniform felt heavy, burdened by the weight of the investigation and the judgment of her peers. She missed the camaraderie, the feeling of being part of a team. Now, she was alone, fighting a battle no one else seemed to understand. The day of the hearing arrived, cold and gray, mirroring Riley's mood. The hearing room was small and sterile, filled with stern faces. The atmosphere was formal and intimidating. Riley sat at a table, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, trying to project an image of confidence she didn't feel. Across from her sat the panel of investigators, their expressions unreadable. Chief Miller was also present, his face etched with a mixture of concern and disapproval. The hearing was to determine whether Riley had violated department policy and, if so, what the appropriate disciplinary action should be. It felt like her entire career, her entire life, was on trial. She knew that the outcome of this hearing would define her future. The hearing began with the presentation of evidence. The prosecution, led by a stern-faced attorney, meticulously laid out the case against Riley. They presented the official police report, the testimony of the officer who gave the direct order, and expert testimony on fire safety protocols. They argued that Riley's actions were a clear violation of department policy and could have had dire consequences. The defense, a young but determined lawyer, countered by highlighting Riley's exemplary record, her dedication to the community, and the fact that her actions saved a life. They argued that Riley had acted in good faith and that her decision was justified by the extraordinary circumstances. They called Sarah to the stand, whose emotional testimony brought tears to some eyes. It was a battle of procedure versus compassion, rules versus humanity. Finally, it was Riley's turn to speak. She stood up, her voice trembling slightly, but her eyes firm. "I understand that I broke protocol," she said, addressing the panel directly. "But I truly believe that I did what any good officer would have done in that situation. I couldn't live with myself if I had stood by and watched Sarah die." She spoke about the heat, the smoke, the fear, but also about the overwhelming feeling of responsibility she felt to save Sarah's life. Her voice cracked with emotion as she described carrying Sarah out of the burning building, feeling her faint pulse against her neck. "I am a police officer because I want to help people," she concluded, her voice stronger now. "And that day, I did. I saved a life. And I will never regret that." A hush fell over the room as she sat down, her fate now in the hands of the panel. The panel deliberated for hours. Riley waited, pacing nervously in a small waiting room. Every minute felt like an eternity. Finally, she was called back into the hearing room. Chief Miller stood to announce the verdict. "Officer Riley," he said, his voice somber, "the panel has found you guilty of disobeying a direct order. However, in light of your exemplary record and the extraordinary circumstances of the situation, we have decided to." He paused, drawing a breath. "Suspend you without pay for 2 weeks. You will also be required to undergo additional training on departmental protocols and procedures." It was over. She was suspended. But she wasn't fired. The suspension was a blow. Riley spent those 2 weeks at home, replaying the events in her mind, questioning everything. The media attention had died down, but the whispers and sideways glances at the station hadn't. Some colleagues were supportive, but others remained distant and judgmental. She struggled with feelings of anger, resentment, and self-doubt. Was it worth it? Had she sacrificed her career for a moment of heroism? The weight of the investigation and the verdict took a toll on her mental health. She found it difficult to sleep, and she lost her appetite. The once confident and dedicated officer was now a shadow of her former self. The department's decision, while not the worst possible outcome, had left deep scars. During Riley's suspension, Sarah reached out to her. She visited Riley at home, bringing flowers and a heartfelt thank you card. They talked for hours, and Riley finally felt like someone truly understood what she had gone through. Sarah became a close friend, a constant source of support and encouragement. Sarah helped Riley see that her actions, while controversial, had been motivated by compassion and a genuine desire to help others. She reminded Riley that she had saved a life, and that was something to be proud of. Together, they started volunteering at a local community center, finding new ways to make a difference. Sarah's friendship became a lifeline, helping Riley navigate the difficult aftermath of her decision and rediscover her sense of purpose. Riley's case sparked a citywide discussion about police discretion, the importance of following protocol, and the support systems available for officers facing difficult decisions. The local newspaper ran a series of articles exploring the complexities of the situation, interviewing legal experts, police officers, and community leaders. The articles raised questions about whether current protocols were too rigid and whether officers should be given more leeway to make split-second decisions in life-or-death situations. They also highlighted the need for better mental health support for officers who experience traumatic events or face disciplinary action. Riley's story became a catalyst for change, prompting a re-evaluation of police policies and practices. The debate extended beyond the city, igniting conversations nationwide about the challenges faced by law enforcement in balancing rules and compassion. As Riley prepared to return to duty after her suspension, she faced a difficult decision. Could she go back to being the same by-the-book officer she once was? Could she trust her instincts again, knowing that doing so might lead to further disciplinary action? Did she even want to stay on the force? She considered several options. She could accept the department's decision and try to move on, hoping to regain the trust of her colleagues. She could fight the decision, appealing the suspension and advocating for changes in departmental policy. Or, she could resign from the police force and find another way to serve her community, perhaps by focusing on her volunteer work with Sarah. The choice was hers, and it would determine the next chapter of her life. After much soul-searching, Riley realized that she could accept the department's decision. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't the end of the world either. She could return to the force, complete the additional training, and try to rebuild the trust she had lost. Maybe, over time, she could even become an advocate for change from within, helping to bridge the gap between protocol and compassion. She knew it wouldn't be easy. Some colleagues might never forgive her for breaking the rules. But she also knew that she still had a passion for helping people, and she believed that she could make a difference as a police officer, even if it meant walking a more cautious path. She would learn from this experience, grow from it, and use it to become a better officer and a better person. Maybe that was what she needed all along. Alternatively, Riley could have chosen to fight the department's decision. She could have appealed the suspension, hired a lawyer, and taken her case to a higher authority. This would have been a long and difficult process, but it would have allowed her to challenge the department's policies and advocate for change on a larger scale. She could have used her story to raise awareness about the challenges faced by police officers and the need for more flexible protocols. She could have become a voice for those who believe that compassion should sometimes outweigh strict adherence to the rules. This path would have been fraught with challenges, but it could have led to meaningful change and inspired other officers to speak out. Fighting the decision would have meant sacrificing her own comfort and security, but it could have been worth it for the greater good. A third option was to leave the police force altogether. Riley could resign and find a different path, one that allowed her to serve her community without the constraints of strict protocols and the constant threat of disciplinary action. She had discovered a passion for volunteering, and she could dedicate herself fully to that work, perhaps even starting her own nonprofit organization. She had also learned valuable lessons about the importance of compassion and the need for change within the law enforcement system. She could use her experience to advocate for those changes from the outside, becoming a voice for reform and working to build stronger relationships between the police and the communities they serve. Leaving the force would mean giving up a career she had once loved, but it could also open up new opportunities to make a difference in the world. Ultimately, Riley's story serves as a reminder that life is rarely black and white. It's a complex tapestry woven with shades of gray, where right and wrong aren't always clearly defined. Her actions forced a community, and perhaps even a nation, to confront difficult questions about the nature of heroism, the importance of rules, and the value of compassion. Whether she chose to stay on the force, fight the system, or find a new path, Riley's legacy would endure. She had challenged the status quo, sparked a vital conversation, and, most importantly, saved a life. Her story serves as a testament to the courage it takes to stand up for what you believe in, even when it means facing opposition and uncertainty. And that's something everyone can admire. Choose one of the three endings below, A, B, or C, to conclude the story. Each ending corresponds to one of Riley's potential decisions. Ending A, acceptance. Riley returned to the police force, a changed woman. She completed her additional training, but she never forgot the lessons she had learned. She became a mentor to younger officers, sharing her experiences and encouraging them to think critically about the rules and the importance of compassion. She worked to build stronger relationships with the community, organizing outreach programs and fostering trust. She was no longer just a by-the-book officer. She was a leader, a role model, and a force for positive change. Ending B, taking a stand. Riley chose to fight the department's decision. She appealed her suspension, hired a lawyer, and took her case to the media. She became a national advocate for police reform, speaking at conferences and testifying before lawmakers. Her efforts led to changes in departmental policy and a greater emphasis on compassion and discretion. She inspired other officers to speak out and challenge the status quo, creating a more just and equitable system. Ending C, moving on. Riley resigned from the police force and dedicated herself to volunteering. She started her own nonprofit organization, providing support and resources to underserved communities. She worked to build bridges between the police and the people they served, fostering trust and understanding. She became a powerful voice for change, advocating for policies that promoted justice and equality. Her new path allowed her to make a lasting impact on the world, one act of kindness at a time.